Do your thing.
Hello and welcome to Final Fantasy Theory. Today's theory, Seymour Guado was an Unsent the whole time. Seymour Guado was one of those famous bosses of Final Fantasy who will just not die. The game says that he becomes an Unsent after you first defeat him at the Temple of Shiva. However, I don't think this is the case, and there are a couple of reasons why I think Seymour was an Unsent the whole time. Just a recap on those who are maybe not as familiar with 10. An Unsent is a person who dies and is not sent by a summoner. They become a fiend or monster, and those with a strong enough will retain their human form but become crazy. Now let's get into the reasons for my theory. The first reason is because of Anima. Arguably the strongest Aeon you can get in the game, Anima is first seen when summoned by Seymour during the Blitzball tournament. As far as in-game evidence from the one time you play as Seymour, it would seem that Anima is Seymour's only Aeon, as there's no option to summon anything. And the only time we ever see him summon is Anima at the Blitzball tournament and when you fight him. When you finally unlock Anima and claim her as your own, she tells you the story of Seymour and how he became who he is. Because he was two races, he was horribly mistreated by both human and Guado his entire childhood, and even to the present, many would whisper about him being mixed. Anima and Seymour went to Xanarkand and got the final Aeon from Unalesca. Anima was dying and wanted to help Seymour defeat Sin and bring peace and acceptance between Guado and human. The loss of his mother and being unaccepted by either race because he was a mix between the two gave him great resentment for the world. It was Anima's hope that him defeating Sin would bring acceptance of him. Now, we're not told why Seymour doesn't face Sin, but at some point Seymour is accepted by his own people, whereas before he wasn't, which is why he was sent to Baj, his mother's home city. I believe Seymour, who had no guardians, descended Mount Gagazet and returned to his father. But at some point he had to defend himself, and with no other summonings based on the in-game evidence, he had no choice but to summon Anima, the final Aeon meant to defeat Sin. Upon summoning Anima, Seymour would have been killed, but so what whatever threat had remained. Seymour, who was a troubled child from his torment from his people and humans alike, gave him the will to live on as an Unsent, and with no one there to perform the sending, he becomes Unsent. After returning to his father, perhaps he had to defend the Guado from a monster from the Thunder Plains and summoned Anima. Because he was already an Unsent, those who witnessed his power wouldn't believe Anima is a final Aeon, because Seymour wouldn't die since he was already dead. Now some will argue, but the Guado can smell the Unsent, because there's a kind of scent that they pick up. This is true, but the Guado also will not talk about their own being Unsent. They firmly believe Guado affairs are Guado affairs only. We see this with Trammell, Seymour's butler. It is likely one of the reasons Driscoll feared his son. He could never bring himself to stop Seymour or send him, and he had hoped someone else would. But because he knew his son's secret and was willing to tell the world before he died, Seymour killed him. Obviously, he also did this so he could assume the role as Maester to enact his master plan of using Yevon. We know because of Belgemine that a dead summoner can't use a final Aeon to defeat Sin. This is likely the case for the Mega Sisters, as they are one of the most powerful Aeons in the game, but they also can't kill Sin on their own. Since Anima no longer has the power to defeat Sin, she becomes a regular Aeon. Seymour stored her away in Baj so no one could rival his power. My last reason I believe this is the case is because of Auron. One of the biggest arguments people will have against this theory is that Seymour ages, but Auron proves that the Unsent still age, as he was in his low 30s when he, Braska, and Jet defeated Sin. Auron then went to face Unalesca and was killed. He continues to age to the present point in the game. I believe this is why Seymour was so obsessed with becoming Sin. Besides obtaining more power, he truly believed that with everyone dead, the fear of Sin would be gone forever, because he has already spent the last 20 or so years of his life dead and Unsent, and he really had nothing to fear. Now I know many are going to say, but the final Aeon isn't what kills the summoner, but the game really never explains what kills them. The only details in the game indicate that because the final summoning is based on the bond between Summoner and Guardian, the psychic link between the two overwhelms the Summoner, and they die upon the summoning. The final Aeon is then possessed, which is why their statues become dead. Alright guys, what do you think of my theory? You like it? You agree with it? Leave your comments below. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe.
See you soon.
Turn on all notifications. See you next time.